When Nintendo announced that they were remaking Ocarina of Time, the main discussion became, is this going to be a one-for-one remake, or is it going to be a brand new reimagining of the game? There was this interview that Miyamoto did with Nick Baumgarten in 2010. And there's this quote in there, I'll kind of read it just one for one. So when I started working for the company, this is Miyamoto, I thought that someday I would like to do the same. I wanted to destroy the styles that we ourselves created. I don't think we can do so completely, but I think that in the way that we are making video games today, we might be getting closer to my idea of destroying the original style. He went on, because we ourselves have created the original format or style of video games, we understand why we had to do it at the same time. Because we understand that, we can also understand why some of them must be kept intact and why some of them we can destroy. So the style of Ocarina is clearly a Hakoniwa style of video game. So it's a miniature garden. It's meant to be limited in the way that you play the game. It's not open world like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. So there could be this fusion of these two things, and many people are discussing whether it's going to be or not. But what I'm more focused on are the themes that are instilled throughout Ocarina of Time, the wisdom that is infused within it. I want to explore if those things are going to be transferred to the remake or not. One thing that we could look at is like time itself. It is Ocarina of Time. And when you're a kid, time is like, it's so far away when it's a year away. But when you're an adult, a year away is like, okay, yeah, I can wait a year. And like, I was looking at what ways that we experience time and like what more research has been done on that. And Vsauce has a great video on this that looks at how the more time you experience, you have more experience of that time, so you can better gauge how long it is, but also it kind of affects your perception the longer you experience it. So it's this weird phenomenon that the more you experience, the quicker it seems to go by. Landau et al. In like 2018, they had a research study that they looked at this perception of time, and they looked at chunking. And so what this chunking means is that people will look at a time of their life and kind of chunk it into a certain time. So children don't necessarily do that. Like, they can remember specific times. Like, if you ask a child what they did in the last year, they're going to remember like a lot of it. You ask an adult, they're like, yeah, it's been a good year. It was a bad year. And so there's this theme of being a child and being an adult and becoming an adult. And Good Blood, that YouTube channel is just like an expert on Ocarina. It's awesome. They do look at that theme in one of their videos of how it is moving from being a child to being an adult, and how even the characters in the game begin to call Link an adult and a man. I want to look at this one quote from Sheik. I think Sheik has some of the best quotes in the game. Time passes, people move, like a river's flow. It never ends. A childish mind will turn to noble ambition. Young love will become deep affection. The clear water's surface reflects growth. Like, just that quote, like, it's summarizing what this research study did, what Vsauce has done. So there's like this deep wisdom that's imbued in Ocarina of Time. So there's this balance where like we kind of have this dialectical thing where we're becoming adults but we're remaining children at the same time. It's not one or the other. You don't want to be an eternal child, but you also don't want to be only an adult, because that's unhealthy as well. And I think Ocarina of Time explores this in a really cool manner. And so essentially, eudaimonic is like having purpose and fulfillment, noble ambition, like a greater purpose, and hedonic is focused on seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. And with Miyamoto, and I keep looking at Miyamoto because I feel like his fingerprints are all over Ocarina of Time. And so what he says about that is that anything that is impractical is play. It's doing something other than what is necessary to continue living as an animal. When it comes to other animals, they play to prepare themselves for hunting. If you ask me why humans beings play, well, I just don't know. It must be just for pleasure. We generate chemicals in our brains so that we can have some pleasure, and by now we've come to understand that pleasure makes you happier, and being happier makes you healthier. So, obviously, play is important, and it is impractical. It doesn't serve a purpose. And this may be a little tangential, but it makes me think of Rise Against. And they have two quotes that, like, line up with this perfectly, which is, like, in their song, "Rumors of my demise have been greatly exaggerated." It says, "The time that we kill keeps us alive." But in their other song, "Survive," it says, "To spend your waking moments simply killing time is to give up on your hopes and dreams, to give up on your life." So with those both true, it's like, we need to work hard towards something, but at the same time, we do need to waste time. And there's a balance between these things. And I think it's important to have a balance. Like, we need to be an adult, we need to be a child, and we have to find a way to make those fuse together in a way that works well. So I think this poses an important question that Ocarina of Time addresses is, what do you do when your childhood is stolen? So if we look at Link in this game, his childhood is absolutely stolen. He's woken up. He's an orphan, first of all. No parents. And he gets this call to adventure to go save the Deku Tree. Goes to Dodongo's Cavern. Goes, helps the Zoros. And then he goes to the Temple of Time, where he becomes an adult immediately and loses 7 years of his life. And everything is in disarray and awful. He tries to go back to the Forest Temple. Obviously, that's the first place you go. You go back to your home. You regress. You go back to what you did as a child, but it's completely transformed. It's ruined. Now everything's changed. It's no longer as it was. I think we have to integrate what happens as a child. We have to look at our trauma and experience it to grow as people, which is a difficult thing to do that we don't want to do. And like Jung is quoted with this, that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will dictate everything in your life, and you will call it fate. It's something like that. So we can't access the past directly. We can't go back to it. We can't fix it. And we can't go to the future and change it either. So all we have is the present moment. And so if we're looking at how to fix our past, the only way that we can do that is through the present moment. And so in Gestalt, there's also this empty chair technique where you can put somebody or someone in that chair, even yourself. And so one way that, like, I'll utilize this is helping individuals put their child self in that chair and identify what in your past, like what as a child did you not get that you needed? And then, like, once they are able to answer that question, how can you give that to yourself? And so if we look at, like, the Water Temple, I think this is where Link starts to do some inner work and starts to explore, like, what's going on. Because he encounters Dark Link, and what it says is to conquer yourself. And with Jung, it's not so much about conquering yourself as it is integrating the shadow, figuring out what is unconscious, what is there that, like, you look inside yourself and you call a monster. And how can you integrate that thing and make it something healthy? So a game that does this really well is Final Fantasy XVI. And in it, we see Clive, who is this guy that grew up in this family where he's protecting his brother. Like, that's his sole mission, is to be the protector of his brother. And his brother is killed. And so he goes on this quest of revenge to find who killed his brother and confront him and kill him. And then that will give him, like, relief from the guilt and the shame that he experienced from that failure. And in that pursuit, that takes years, and he becomes a slave and, like, has to break out of that and saves another childhood friend. He goes on this pursuit and he finds at the last moment that the man who killed his brother was himself. And so there's this rejection of the truth, because that shame is such a deep-seated thing that he had hated this man so much, and then discovers that it's himself. And so at the pivotal moment in this battle with Ifrit that is him, rather than saying conquer yourself, beat yourself, which it is a battle, it's not easy, but the message, rather than being conquer yourself, is accept the truth. So acceptance of the shadow self is something that's important. I don't think that means you give in to it, but you acknowledge it and you find a way to integrate it in a healthy way.
Show yourself, Ifrit.
So, in addiction circles, there's this concept of the Serenity prayer, and I find it lines up very closely with the Triforce. And what it states is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. If we replace power with serenity, rather than trying to get what you want, accepting what you can't, and knowing when to accept it or not. When do you need courage to change something? Because I think there is times that we require courage, such as like looking at our past and seeing what's there. As Link moves towards the Shadow Temple, like he obtains the lens of truth, and so he's able to discern what is true, what is not true, and has to look at these horrific things and explore this dark history of Hyrule that like he wasn't a part of, he's not responsible for. But because he's looked internally at himself and he's integrated his own dark self, he's able to go to the Shadow Temple and confront the deeper things that he's not wanting to look at. And like there's this concept of like what you want most deeply is in the cave of your deepest fears. And so having courage to face the things that you're not wanting to look at, that are your deepest fears, can have the most rewarding things in your life. And as Link moves away from the Shadow Temple and goes to the Spirit Temple, he starts to kind of like synthesize this as like his child self and his adult self are able to work through this journey together as they solve this like spiritual problem of beating the Spirit Temple. And it like requires like two different journeys at the same time to open doors in the future by unlocking things in the past. And that is like that dialectic of being a child and an adult. And as he succeeds in the journey and like accomplishes all of this, he returns to being a child and like everybody forgets what he did. Like nobody knows like how he saved the future. It's just him. But he has the knowledge of what happened, but also the grief of the loss of not being able to connect with those people. And like you see him go to Majora's Mask in search of a friend. And so I think people will like use this concept of the 5 stages of grief, which is an okay concept. But one that's like more grounded in therapy is Worden's 4 tasks of grief. So rather than being this like stages that you kind of just passively go through, he lists 4 tasks that you have to accomplish. And so the first task is accepting the reality of the loss. So it's not just like mentally, like you may know of the loss, but on a heart level, like feeling it. And then it's processing the pain of the grief, sitting in it. And then adjusting to a world without what was lost and finding your new identity. So who is he now? And then finding an enduring connection while embarking on a new life. So like honoring the memory while you move forward into a new life and hold on in a new healthy way to what happened in the past. So there's these deep themes in Ocarina of Time, and it's really fascinating how they explore these things. And I'm just excited to see how they're going to implement these into the game. So thanks for watching.